I'm also going to be provocative, so I'm going to give you a warning in advance. This is how I think we should be empowering people to think about AI. It's good for some things, I will not deny, but it's not good for academic writing. We've also talked about the emerging evidence of the link between the repeated exposure or use of AI tools and the demise of critical thinking. What's my bold prediction? Because I promised that. I do think that the skill of the future will be the Thank you so much for having me, and I feel like I'm standing among giants. I really enjoyed the first talks, just because I think I liked Dr. Tim's talk, because those who know me will know I'm anti-AI. I'm not about to touch AI with a stick for academic writing. And I'm going to spend some time on explaining why I take this position. But at the same time, I do feel that people need to have AI literacy. So it should be up to an individual whether they're going to dabble in AI or not for their academic writing. And so I do appreciate this type of knowledge being out there so that people can make informed decisions. So as we talk about the exploration of the impacts of AI in academic writing and setting the boundaries, I'm going to take a very different angle to this conversation. And I'm also going to be provocative, so I'm going to give you a warning in advance. But I'm so deeply convinced about the things that I'm about to present that I dare to make a bold prediction about what the future looks like after all the pieces have fallen into place with this use of AI. And I'm going to save that for last. I think first I must build the case for it. So the first part for me to start would be thinking about the fundamentals that are related to academic writing, which I think sometimes are getting lost and we're not always aware why people would be fussy over those things. So writing is thinking. And academic writing is the medium through which we think about particularly complex issues. So it's not just that I sit and think something up, I conjure things in my brain and then I write them down. But actually through academic writing processes, I draw out very complex, very complicated ideas, and I put them on a space where I have the position to interrogate them, to hold different theoretical lenses over them, and to weigh different options and make very careful choices about what I choose to engage with and what I choose not to engage with. And because it's about thinking about complex, complicated issues, we almost cannot separate it from reading. So if academic writing is the medium through which we think about complicated issues, then reading is the process through which we select the ingredients for the manufacturing of academic knowledge. We are looking for premium ingredients from existing works that are going to give us the best chance to produce the best quality knowledge. So what this means is that within the academic model or the academic knowledge model, we're actually not interested in increasing the quantity of knowledge. We are very much interested in increasing the quality of knowledge. So building on those who have come before me and the insights that they were able to gather with the limitations that they faced, what can I do that will push the boundaries of knowledge and help us to get to a better quality of knowledge than what we had before? So the logic of academic writing is knowledge quality enhancement. It's not knowledge quantity improvement. And when you put this as the fundamental thinking that should underlie and should inform how we approach academic writing, then I'm already not sold on the idea that we're going to be more efficient with AI, because the point was never to be efficient. The point was always to increase the quality of knowledge. So if this is the starting point, then what sort of issues arise when we start talking about AI, some of which have already been unpacked by earlier speakers, so I will try not to dwell on them. But I'm going to take a slight detour and also talk about the students, because this is the future. Many of us are not just researchers, we are also educators. And I think we should also be paying attention to how we learn and the fundamentals of learning in order to be able to guide the next generation of thinkers and leaders that are going to be responsible for our pensions ultimately, right? I want to go to bed every night knowing that when I retire in the next 15 years or so, my pension money is going to be in good hands, right? So whether somebody becomes a politician or they're going to become the head of the Reserve Bank of wherever, whatever they are doing, I want to be sure that these people will actually understand what they are doing. And so one of the ways that I like to describe learning, even to my 6-year-old, because she's so fascinated about intelligence and she wants to be seen as intelligent. So I always tell her intelligence is not what you know. It's how you learn. How do you come to know things? So even now when I start teaching a module for the first time now, the first slide will have the statement, it's not what you know, it's how you know. I don't care what you know. I couldn't be impressed by all the stats that you can spit out in front of me in the next 50 minutes or whatever. I'm more interested in how you came to know. How do you deal with unfamiliar problems? Break them down into things that you can actually relate to and then reconstruct them into coming up with a solution, with an idea. This is what the fundamentals are. And then for us to become particularly good at actually learning how to learn, we always need some kind of foundational knowledge. So there is a pyramid of learning, and one of the things that we do usually is what we call acquiring surface learning. So as somebody who studies supply chains, I should understand at a basic level, what is a supply chain? What is it made up of? Who are the different actors in a supply chain, and why is it important to understand how these actors actually engage? This is surface knowledge, it's basic knowledge, but then having had this building blocks, I can actually then acquire deep learning by learning more the connections between things and internalizing this meaning rather than being able to just spit it out. And then later, I should consolidate this learning by being able to apply familiar concepts and fundamentals to unfamiliar problems. So even when we are teaching students at universities right now, yes, we use case studies like COVID-19 because they're in the past, but they're context. They're context to help them to think about the next crisis that's coming. If the next crisis is umfeqoqwane, do you think your students are going to be able to resolve that? I don't know what umfeqoqwane is going to be, but I should have the confidence that when that time comes, they're going to be capable of doing it. And one of the biggest issues with AI right now is that what these tools do is they take away the foundation that students need in order to get better, to become expert at particular things. So it takes away the need for them to get a basic grasp of the fundamentals and to understand things. It's just going to spit out those answers. The students just regurgitate them without understanding them. And so they have no knowledge or no foundation upon which they can build the knowledge to become the real experts. So this is one area that I will say people need to be careful when they talk about AI and all its benefits. It's literally pulling the rug from under people's feet because they are losing the basic fundamentals, the basic building units for becoming experts in named professions, right? So a doctor who never learned the fundamentals of the human body, I will be very worried if they had to see me, right? I want to know that at a basic level, they understand my body and how my body works. Then we can talk about their specialism to become whatever, right? So that's one thing that I'm going to leave you with, like just keep this at the back of your mind. Why we do academic writing, why we learn, why this boring stuff that now students are able to bypass by asking AI tools to spit out the answers is important for their intellectual development. Then you will know, right? It's just like the same way that our bodies work, right? If I have to walk every day, I could drive everywhere, right? Just walk a few steps to my driving lot and then drive off wherever. I can do that. But why do I sometimes leave the car and walk? Because there's a certain element of physical activity that I have to maintain in order to be a healthy, functioning being. The same applies to our minds. Our minds are built to think. We do have an intellectual muscle. I believe that. And for that intellectual muscle to stay healthy, we have to keep our brains engaged. And AI takes away the opportunity for us to do that. So when we turn over to AI, I already mentioned the things that I contest, the fact that it pulls the rug from under people's feet. We are losing the fundamentals that make us the experts that we ultimately become. And there are also some purported benefits of AI that I question a lot, especially when it comes to issues of equity and inclusion. I would ask, equity and inclusion for who? Because one of the things that we also have not really spent a lot of time on, and I find it shameful, is the AI supply chain itself. The biggest losers of the advent of AI are actually a lot of people sitting in African countries where the data centers are being set up now. These data centers, they guzzle up a lot of energy and they guzzle up a lot of water. I've read articles where there are communities where people now spend more time looking for water that they can actually consume, because in addition to these data centers taking up something like half a liter of water on average for cooling, just for 100 words of AI generated text, when that water is released, it's no longer drinkable. So they either have to buy or travel longer distances to get the water that they can actually consume. The energy requirements, again, the same 100 words of AI generated text is the equivalent of keeping 14 LED light bulbs on for a whole hour, right? And we know the energy crisis that we face in most of the African countries. We also know the water challenges that we face in most of these countries. And if these AI data centers are competing with people who are already living sometimes under precarious conditions for these very basic resources, what sort of future are we condemning them to? What about the child right now who can no longer read at night, which usually is the only time you can be productive because the energy is being redirected to the data centers that need to be running for 24 hours a day? And if they could afford to get a candle to read under the candlelight, they're killing their eyes. And in the not so distant future, they're going to be needing medical assistance for their eyes because they're reading under very bad light. So when we talk about ethics in AI, I think we do need to extend this conversation to beyond just what it means, like, am I being a good person if I use it this way? But actually, at what cost am I enjoying these conveniences? And does the cost actually justify the benefits? Because if it doesn't, then we shouldn't even be having this conversation. So I would like to get more information on how these data centers are having impact on people, and whether at the end of the day, whatever we get out of it is going to be worth it. I tried to look up some of the stats on Africa, and this is really difficult information to come by at the moment. I don't even know if it is accurate, but this is what I found from, it's called Data Center Map. We have at the moment 198 data centers in Africa. And leading the way are South Africa with 49, Kenya with 18, and Nigeria with 16. There were some surprise entries for me in the sense that I know that these countries are in conflict, and I know that they face a lot of scarcity around fresh water or clean water and energy. And this was Somalia, DRC, and Sudan. Why do we have data centers there? And then people say, oh, it's going to be a game changer. Africa is going to be a big winner out of this. Then I look up, okay, so how much of this AI is the African continent benefiting from? We account for just 2.5% of the global AI market, 2.5% with 198 data centers. Of course, it's not the biggest, so China and the US still lead the way, but who is benefiting from these data centers? Because it's not us. We are just accounting for 2.5% of the global market, and we are sacrificing the future of our children and the current generation in the process. So these are some of the things that I wish we could bring more to the fore and actually start asking the right questions. There are also issues of exclusion. So we were talking about assignment meals earlier, or the speaker, Dr. Samuel, was talking about assignment meals. And yes, these are a problem. So as part of my presence online, especially on TikTok, one of the things that I spend a lot of time doing is deleting comments from assignment meals and blocking them. But then if you think about it, some of these people are actually truly gifted individuals to be able to actually write assignments and not using AI. So there are different service packages, right? So if you want an actual human to write it, they will write it. Why am I fighting these people on the internet streets? And why am I not sitting with them as peers who are interested in intellectual problems, or students who will be interested in becoming something in the future? So the way we are thinking about equity is a bit warped and it's a bit messed up, and it's making us lose sight of some of the real injustices that we should be thinking about. You know, the same would also apply when we talk about or AI tools mean that we can access more information. Well, the real access that we actually need is access to full publications. This is the biggest issue that sets us back in the African continent, right? If I want to write an academic article, I'm going to find that more than 80% of the academic peer-reviewed articles that I would like to read are not available to me. And I even met the most extreme case, somebody who said they were trying to write a PhD proposal using abstracts because they couldn't access the full papers. So why should you give me AI when actually just letting me have full access to published works, which should be a public good, right? Anyone should be able to access academic knowledge and be able to use it for good or to build on that to do something better. We don't have that access. And before we have these types of things sorted out, I'm really not keen or interested on the AI conversation. We also have to understand how these large language models work. As the previous speakers already point out, one of the biggest issues with large language models is that they don't understand language. So people like to make the comparison between AI tools and calculators, and actually they're not the same thing. I have a YouTube video where I unpack the differences between the calculator versus these GenAI models. And one of the biggest ones is that calculators actually have an underlying mathematical logic and they solve mathematical problems, and they're going to be reliable 99.9% of the time. They will also tell you when you've made an error in any of the input processes that you did. Large language models also have a mathematical logic, but we want to impose them on complex social issues, and a lot goes wrong in between. They also will not tell you if you've made an error, so they say get better at prompt engineering. How do I know if my prompt is wrong? Because it's not going to give me any error sign. So these hallucinations are so serious that at this point, if you would think about the work of checking everything AI gave you and seeing if it is accurate, you're probably better off just doing things the old school way, because it's also been released. I saw an article last week, I don't remember where it was published, but they were saying as these AI tools become more sophisticated, they hallucinate more. Very dangerous territory for academic writing, where accuracy is your currency and where your reputation is built in drops, but you lose it in buckets. One strike on one publication over one hallucinated citation, and you can forget about your academic career. So when you think about those risks, I wonder really if it's worth it, and if it's worth us encouraging each other to try to find ways to use it responsibly, because it's not there. It was built for some things, it's good for some things, I will not deny, but it's not good for academic writing. So there are examples that I've seen, like one where they say they're using AI tools to identify research, quantitative research, that had errors, and it was accurate to a level of about 75%. So when I saw that, I thought that's actually a really good use, rather than getting humans to go through this. If you can, for 75% of your pile, get an accurate result on where there are errors, it's something that you can use. But when it comes to the fundamentals, then it's not important. We've also talked about the emerging evidence of the link between the repeated exposure or use of AI tools and the demise of critical thinking. So as I said in the beginning, I do believe we have an intellectual muscle, and you're meant to exercise that muscle. Even basic things like, how do I kickstart my thought processes? How do I think on my feet? How do I respond to a question impromptu? All these things are important. They are things that make us who we are when it comes to academic writing. And so in the end, we have to be careful. Also pay attention to journals, to funding bodies, to scientific committees, because they are also now starting to respond to the ills of AI, which have already been mentioned. Hallucinations are bad. Quality doesn't get good, so human writers still excel at writing. At best, you'll get a mediocre result with an AI tool. So you actually have an opportunity to ask yourself, what's my full potential? If I allowed myself to grow, how far could I go? And then the problem of convergence. This is where also journals start to have a huge problem. All papers now start to sound the same because the same AI tool with the same logic and the affinity for pulling out those patterns that work, repeatedly reproducing the things that work, is at work. So papers look the same. The divergence of knowledge, the divergence of thoughts is dying. And so they're responding to that. So you might actually want to be able to think about this before you use these tools. And some of the things that people also talk about is the benefits for non-native speakers because it can improve your English. My experience, and I also see this in comments sometimes or in my lives, non-native speakers are some of the biggest losers when it comes to what I call the false flagging by AI tools. So AI detectors can say this assignment is likely AI generated, and yet no AI was used, or it wasn't used to the extent that was needed, just because of the biases that are in the models and how non-native speakers write. Most of the times they're victims of this false flagging. So you also have to be careful if you're a non-native how you use these tools, because if you're more likely to be accused of using AI, and you actually did use it, you're going to have a very difficult time explaining that, no, but my original work ended here and I really used it to polish. You're better off being able to prove this is an AI-free piece of work. And if AI says I wrote it, then maybe I'm that good, or maybe I don't know what is happening. So these are some of the discussions that I wish we could bring to the fore and have a more nuanced discussion and understanding of what we are dealing with. So what's my bold prediction? Because I promised that. I do think that the skill of the future will be the people who are not AI tainted, because we are going to soon need people to clean up this AI mess. The bad quality publications, the professionals who look like they know what they are doing, but they don't, and they're causing damages, killing people, killing economies. Someone's going to have to come out with a scrub and clean all of that up. We're going to need forensic experts for AI-caused damage. So if you're sitting in the room and you're feeling like I might be losing out, you are not. Stay on course. Make sure that you understand what you are doing. Make sure that you understand what makes us human and what makes processes actually particularly amazing, because then you're going to be able to do the trailing of cleaning up the AI damage that is going to cause. My conclusion, it's doing more harm than it is doing good. And whether it's inevitable or not, we do have to think how we engage with it. So death is inevitable, but we're not living our lives as though we were dead. But actually, it builds a level of consciousness that forces us to actually live life fully, right? Like, I know it's there, but I'm going to act like it's not there just so that I can have a fulfilling life. This is how I think we should be empowering people to think about AI tools. And yes, if they want to dabble in them, as long as there's an awareness. I think just like we do with tobacco now, where you have this big warning sign on the pack that says smoking causes cancer, and they show you the impact. Maybe we need to start doing brain scans of people who have become over-reliant on AI and say, this is what will happen to you over time if you rely on AI. You want to do it? Fine, do it. It's okay. And then maybe we will start to see things move. Well, Thank you. These are thought-provoking, and indeed, we don't have all the answers. You ended with the gender question. One thing that I can tell you is that at least I'm based in the UK, so I'm considered to be part of the West in some ways. And I think the evidence actually suggests that women are less likely to use it, and especially minority women, so people like myself, we are less likely to use it. And is there an impact? Well, I think only time is going to tell. But as I said, my bold prediction is that the people who don't use it, at least not in the ways that are fundamental and matter, are the people that will have the future. So if you look at my publication rate, it's not that great because I still do everything old school. I read my own articles, I summarize them, I curate them, I do everything that's required. And so my work is slow, but I have a lot of confidence in it and its quality. And if Dr. Samuel would run into me during a conference, I will be able to talk about it at length. So that's one thing. Then you also asked, is there a role of AI? And again, I think that even for the most basic things, I would wonder if we really need it. So Dr. Timothy gave us this really nice list with the green zone of the different things that you could use AI for. And from what I know, we have a lot of tried and tested tools that will actually do an even better job than AI tools, right? You want to do a literature search. What's the trusted database in your discipline? And can you go and find papers there? Because it's going to produce papers that are there. And some of these databases also give you carefully curated papers. It's already only presenting what are considered to be good quality papers. So I personally like Web of Science, for example, because I don't need to understand Boolean operators. It has all these things, the buttons that I can click to say and, or, and to exclude particular disciplines until I get to the right set of papers that I need. So if I have a tool like that, it's using up less resources than AI. It's 100% reliable. Why would I use an AI tool to search the literature? Then people say, oh, it can give you summaries. We have this thing called the abstract. In every single article, it's going to be like 100 to 250 words. This abstract is written by the original author. It hits all the right points in terms of what you're looking for. It's 100% accurate. So why am I going to waste precious energy, take away water from some child somewhere in Nigeria, just so that I can bypass reading the abstract? That's just 100 to 250 words. So it's going to be reliable. It's done by the authors. I know I can trust it. So I don't need an AI summary for the papers that I'm going to read in that respect, right? Language, grammar. Microsoft Word has always had this inbuilt function, right? It's going to check grammar and spellings for you. And lately, it also does tell you, oh, the tone here doesn't sound so great. So what I like about that is that you still preserve your voice, right? So everyone, if done right, we write uniquely. Writing is like a fingerprint. Only Eisenhower in the world of case studies can write like Eisenhower. And only you, Wellington, can write like you if you let it be the case. If you don't let AI contaminate your voice. And you might be surprised how beautiful your voice sounds to other people and how you might start to like and grow into it. And then when it comes to citations, oh, Mendeley, Zotero, I don't know how many things I can list that actually allow you to cite with 100% accuracy if you would use those tools. So at the end of the day, I'm sitting here wondering, really, is AI something that we needed, or is it the answer to the question that no one had? Like, just because it was made, people decided we had to use it, and we have spent so much time asking the wrong question, how can we use it? But maybe the first question should be, do we need it? You know, what role does it serve for things that we don't already have? And then after we ask that question, we can ask, is it going to help us to be better thinkers? Because this is all that we are doing in the academic space. And if it does, then great. I'm yet to meet someone who said, I started using AI and my critical thinking took off. If you were there and you can really evidence how you're a better critical thinker, your intellectual muscle is amazing, get in touch, because I'm struggling to find those people. Thank Thank you so much for stepping forward, because it's like you're in a lion's den, right? I know the relationship between lecturers and students gets very, very complicated now. Most important thing that we don't tell our students enough is that your study is like a full-time job. 40 hours a week, you are expected to be at work focusing on your own studies. And so many people usually will account for the contact time having to go for lectures, but they will not account for the reading time and the time that it actually takes to prepare for your assignments. And yes, we have a growing situation, especially also within African countries, where you have to work another job while you also study. And this is where discipline becomes important. You will be surprised how much consistent effort actually gets you. If your assignment is released today and it's due in 3 months, if you started working 30 minutes a day on it for the next 3 months, you are able to turn in amazing work. Most students wait until the 11th hour before they actually do the work because they're busy for whatever reason. So some of it is understandable, but it also means that they're compromising themselves. You are putting yourself in a situation where you will not be able to resist the AI tools because it's 2 hours to your deadline and you didn't do anything and you have no idea where to start. Also take advantage of the lectures. So usually we will give you a lot of hints in the lectures in terms of the things that are important that you need to focus on. So I always advise students, go to the lectures with the slides already printed if they are provided in advance. Make notes against those slides and then go and read whatever was highlighted based on those notes. When your assignment comes out, then start already building it. Start reading the literature. Document everything you've read. Use the likes of Zotero and Mendeley to save your references so that you can find them later. And then you will be amazed like how much you're able to achieve. So I had to be a student working 2 or 3 jobs for my undergrad. My second bachelor's was in Europe, in the Netherlands. So I worked those jobs, and I also needed to be a distinction level student because it was the only way that I could get a scholarship. Otherwise, I would have had to go back home after 2 years without finishing my degree. But I was still able to do it, and it was down to focus and discipline and priorities. I never went partying on a Friday night because I knew this was the time that I get to catch up on my work. So also just learning those basics of sacrifice as well, and thinking more in the long term in terms of the decisions that you make, and you're going to be fine. And you're going to find that you actually start to enjoy it. It's not so boring. That's why my whole brand is Happy Writing. I want people to find the joy in academic writing because this is where all the magic happens. This is where you grow into yourself. This is how you become the person that people are hunting for. You may not write that many job applications in your life if you do the academic process right. Good luck.